Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Well, it looks like Hollywood really never learns its lesson, especially when it comes to pushing their SJW agendas into our movies. This time, they're pulling the old trick where they reboot a beloved classic movie that still holds up really well today. And to top things off, the real icing on this bullshit cake is, it's an all-girl remake. That's right, today we're talking about Ocean's 8, the all-female reboot of Ocean's 11 from 2001, that also itself was a remake of the 1960 movie, starring Frank Sinatra and his Rat Pack friends. So not only is this new all-female Ocean's 8 a bad idea and unnecessary, it's also derivative as shit. And I'm getting some really eerie flashbacks to the failed female Ghostbusters of 2016, which was a terrible waste of time, money, and talent. I know this cast can be hilarious, but Ghostbusters 2016 just totally sucked balls. And that's why I'm so worried about Ocean's 8. I mean, why would Hollywood executives even go through this after Ghostbusters? Do they really think audiences are going to change their minds and start getting into social justice and this all-girl feminist bullcrap? Granted, I think Ocean's 8 still has a better chance of being good, but as the reviews start to pour in, it's not sounding too hot so far. Looking at some of the early reviews on Twitter, it sounds like we got the same thing happening in the press that happened when Ghostbusters 2016 came out. Most people are saying the movie is good or okay, and they're really praising the cast more than anything. Basically, the reviewers are all afraid to say it's bad, because if they do, they'll be labeled as sexists who don't like the movie because of its females. The same thing that happened to the early reviewers of Ghostbusters. Vox.com says, let's be honest, you're gonna see Ocean's 8 for its all-star cast. That cast does not disappoint, with a title on their article below it saying something even less flattering. Ocean's 8 proves that a great cast can make up for a middling movie. Middling movie doesn't sound too good to me. I mean, I'd still watch it, but as I've said before in other videos, I watch everything, and I'm also not really sure if I think this Ocean's 8 cast is as awesome as people are claiming it is. It's definitely not as epic and awesome as George Clooney's Ocean's cast, which included him, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, Don Cheadle, Julia Roberts, Bernie Mac, and Andy fucking Garcia. Ocean's 8 isn't even close to that. All they've got is Sandra Bullock and Cate Blanchett, and that's about it. Sure, maybe Anne Hathaway and Sarah Paulson could get honorable mentions, but the rest of the cast is pretty mediocre, or worse. Not a big fan of Mindy Kaling or Awkwafina at all. So if the cast is the best thing about this movie, then that's not really a great start for Ocean's 8, I'm afraid. It's definitely not this amazing, awesome cast that can save a shitty movie with no good story. Next, the World News Network tweets this: Anne Hathaway steals Ocean's 8, if only the rest was as much fun. You see what I'm saying, guys? If bland Hathaway is the best part of your movie, you might have a bit of a stinker on your hands. Next, we see Metacritic sharing a quote from Vanity Fair, which bends over backwards here, doing everything it can to not say this feminist SJW movie sucked balls. The tweet reads, "There's no disaster here, no regrettable misfire to be chagrined about. Phew. That said, I do wish Ocean's 8 were a little more than fun." Why even have this long preface then, Vanity Fair? It almost sounds like you feel obligated to like this movie because of the all-girl angle. It's almost like you're being biased about it, I'm pretty sure. Next, Winlay Ma says, "It's far from a perfect movie, but Ocean's 8 is still worth your time." I'm starting to think it might not be though. I mean, it's worth the time to me, so I can make a video making fun of how gay it is, but I don't think the normal, regular, moviegoer crowd is gonna want to waste their time with this one. Maybe some hardcore Oceans fans will like it, but that's about it. And finally, The Wrap says, "It's all amiably slick and charming and funny, but the movie never quite kicks into high." I think you guys get the point. Most of these reviews make it sound like it's a passable movie that has a decent cast and premise and production, but upon watching it, it ended up being lackluster. And that's just how these reviews sound on face value. When you also consider the fact that most of these reviewers are going easy on it because they fear backlash, well, I'm willing to bet this is an even bigger turd than they lead on. Next, let's take a look at some of the embarrassing coverage this movie has been getting on the Today Show, who are certainly more than happy to jump on board with this all-female, girl power, SJW left-wing agenda.
I'm looking around at this group and I'm thinking like, wow, and I'm also thinking, what took so long? Like, it's 2018, we finally have
I thought you meant how long did it take us to get ready? Every passing year.
But can you believe it's 2018 and we finally have this? We finally have an all-woman cast in an action-packed heist?
I'm glad she added heist movie at the end there, because I thought she was gonna just say this was the first all-female cast movie, when obviously we can again easily turn back to Ghostbusters 2016. But the first all-female action heist movie, sure, I guess it is that. Could be the first one. There's nothing else big I can think of, but I kind of disagree with this whole premise entirely. First of all female shouldn't be something to aspire to. This doesn't need to get propped up like it's special. In fact, when I hear all-female, I usually think it's less special, because despite shows like Today Show trying to boost it up, all-female things are usually less special in real life. Ghostbusters 2016 we already went over extensively, but let's jump off of movies for a sec. What about all-female sports? Those are always less intense and less competitive than men's. People don't want to watch it as much. The only all-female sports people do want to watch are the ones with hot athletes, like women's volleyball or soccer. I think you get my point. Basically, all-female is a way for girls and SJW sympathizers to boost up the weaker sex. It's a code word for, this isn't as good as its male counterpart, but we're praising it like it's the same or better anyway. The other thing I don't like about this premise is, heist movies are already specific enough. Heist movies, while they can be exceedingly popular, and there are a lot of them out there, but they're still just a subgenre of the crime picture, of crime films, which itself is a subgenre of action. So put all female on top of that, well, you're just getting too specific. So specific you really shouldn't be surprised this kind of movie hasn't happened yet. The host Hoda is freaking out about this like it was so obvious. She says it's 2018, current year, over and over. Like they should have had this very specific kind of movie already made already, but I say that's just whack.
You know, ensembles of women just don't sell. You know, it's just lazy thinking.
Who thinks that? Who thinks they don't sell?
Lazy, stupid.
Men on Reddit. They don't think that anymore. Aren't you all living proof of that?
I mean, well, we'll see.
Yeah, you will see. So why don't you slow down today's show, lady? The movie hasn't even come out yet, and there's definitely no proof this all-women thing is a successful model. In fact, there's a lot of proof to the contrary, like Ghostbusters 2016, which I've already mentioned 20 times by now in this video. Sorry, my bad, but these idiots in Hollywood keep forgetting it happened, so I guess I gots to remind them. Also, this stigma Cate Blanchett is talking about is kinda true. Another reason it's taken so long for this to happen is because of the money, and the fact that these all-girl movies don't sell well. No one wants to see them or pay money. They don't make enough money, so no one wants to lose money making a girl movie, just so SJW reporters can gush over it. And the reason these girl movies don't sell is another big reason these all-girl reboots don't ever work. It's because they're taking action and comedy movies that starred men acting and performing for their fellow men in the audience. It's men who watch movies like Oceans and Ghostbusters. And while we do like watching women in our movies too, we don't want them in all the lead roles. Not necessarily. It could work one day maybe, but so far it hasn't. So far they've casted mostly ugly chicks too, which doesn't help either. All of the Ghostbusters 2016 cast was gross, and half of Ocean's 8 is too. Not to be sexist or anything, but this is just the honest truth. Guys want to watch hot chicks in their movies, and they also want to watch guys as leading men and the ones that are leading the operations.
But isn't the timing of this so interesting? I mean, we do feel like there's a big shift for women, and all of a sudden, poof, on this, during this time, this movie comes out.
Yeah, Hoda, that's called the SJW Agenda in media. You left-wing retards have been pushing this pro-feminist horseshit for years now. And so, that means these feminist movies didn't come out of nowhere. There was no poof, Hoda. These all-girl movies are coming out now to try and cash in on the third wave of feminism this country is seeing now. Or I should say, the third wave of feminism we have been suffering through now and enduring. Movies like Ghostbusters 2016 and Ocean's 8 are trying to capitalize on feminism, but unfortunately, they haven't discovered the simple truth that I've said time and time again on this show. Feminists and SJWs don't buy shit. They complain and preach and ask for more girls and minorities in their media, but at the end of the day, they're not the ones who are really buying it. And that's why these feminist reboot movies always fail. They piss off the actual fans of the franchise and the genre while trying to appeal to another group who doesn't like it at all to begin with, and they're definitely not spending money on it.
You started shooting before the Me Too and the Time's
We
Up.
came out after what I think was an atrocious male-dominated reception of Ghostbusters, which was a great film. Those women were hilarious, you know, and I think that that film was treated in a way that I don't think it would be treated now if it was, you know, was released.
Whoa, 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 wait, what? So you guys do remember Ghostbusters 2016, and Cate Blanchett even has the balls to say it was a great film? She's really a better actor than I thought. Gotta give her credit here. I don't think anyone who actually saw that movie could sit back and say Ghostbusters was a great movie. Not with a straight face, but Cate pulled it off pretty nicely. She is a trained actor after all, so lying is her trade craft. And that's not even mentioning that she's exhibiting the exact kind of bullshit I was talking about before, about what happened to people who reviewed Ghostbusters. She's saying the people who didn't like the movie are sexist. She's calling them male chauvinist pigs, basically. I guess in Cate's little dream world, these bad reviews are not because the movie sucked and no one liked it. No, Cate thinks Ghostbusters 2016 was great and everyone who said otherwise hates women. What a fucking joke.
The reception that Ghostbusters got, the media really glommed onto that narrative and that took over whatever anybody was doing. doing. It took over whether or not the film had merit. It was about these men's feelings about it. And I don't think that would happen nowadays.
Fuck you, Anne Hathaway. Nothing has changed since Ghostbusters 2016. That was less than 2 years ago. I mean, a lot in the world has changed, and thank God we have a new president. President Trump is kicking ass now, but that's not to say sexism and racism and the whole culture has crossed over into the future or something. The fact of the matter is, the hate for Ghostbusters was never about sexism to begin with, and it wasn't a males hating females thing either. Ghostbusters 2016 was a shitty movie, and a lot of the reviewers said so in their media outlets. This prompted Hollywood and actors like Kate and Sandra Bullock to call those reviewers sexist and anti-female, which is just an excuse and plain wrong. With all that said, looks like we got another all-female reboot that's already off to a rocky start. So far it hasn't been as big a nightmare as Ghostbusters 2016 yet, which had a lot of drama in its production and its lead up to the release. No, Ocean's 8 has had an almost silent production and lead up, and that's why a lot of us are only first hearing about it now, and a few of us knew about it before seeing the trailers in the last couple months. But still, none of us normies have seen the movie yet, so we'll just have to wait a few more days to see how it all plays out. But my early assessment says it's not looking too good for Ocean's 8, and I think we're gonna have another big, dramatic Ghostbusters 2016 situation going on the rest of the summer. People are gonna see the movie shitty, make reviews saying that, and then the social justice warriors will start calling them sexist real soon. But don't worry, if you don't want to spend the money for the movie ticket and you still want to see a heist film, just watch Ocean's 11 from 2001. Like I said before, that shit still holds up really well. Perfectly, in fact. It didn't even need a reboot, actually. George Clooney and Brad Pitt are excellent in that movie, and so is everyone else. I'm actually a little worried that I watched it again right before seeing the new one. There's a lot to live up to, so Ocean's 8 has a big uphill battle to win. They got big shoes to fill, and this is why I think these all-girl movies should stop being reboots and spin-offs of popular guys movies. Ocean's 8 should have just done its own original story, and they would have been better off for it. Hey Hollywood, how about coming up with an original movie idea instead of ripping off the hard work of men to prove some back-asswards feminist point? But I digress. One last thing before we go though, I want to mention a joke this whole situation reminds me of. From the comedy special called Newtown by John Mulaney from 2012. He actually made a crack about why an all-female heist movie wouldn't work, and this was 6 years ago. Check this out.
My girlfriend's a female, and then I had all these friends that are female. So when I started dating her, I was like, oh great, they'll all get along. No.
That is true. Larger groups of girlfriends always end up fighting about something. Girls are just more catty, let's face it, and they get more jealous and competitive of each other sometimes too. It happens. And if you're playing along at home, I think you could see where the rest of this joke is going.
I don't want to make any generalizations about women because I don't know about women, but this is one thing I've noticed in my own personal experience is that I think women can be friends with each other, but I think it can be tricky sometimes when you try and force women to hang out with each other. I think that sometimes doesn't work.
True. This is playing off the idea that girls can't be friends with each other. That stereotype is partly true as well, but not always. Girls can have friends, girlfriends, and they can get along great and be besties too, but they do still fight eventually. And this either leads to them having constantly rotating groups of friends and social circles, or girls might just have one or two good friends that can last over time.
Like, I don't think you could never put together a heist of women. Does that make sense? Like Ocean's 11 with women wouldn't work because 2 would keep breaking off to talk about the other 9. Or not even talk, just say weird passive-aggressive things while they break into the casino. Just be like, oh, I love how you just wear anything.
And boom, that's the zinger. Mulaney says it better and funnier than I ever could, but let me reiterate on some serious terms. A real heist would certainly be trickier with an all-female crew, because of the social reasons I and John went over here before. And because of this, an all-girls Ocean's 11 is a bit of an unrealistic idea. I mean, the whole big giant casino heist is already far-fetched enough, but then trying to say all girls can do that too? Give me a fucking break. If the all-girl crew doesn't start fighting like cats and dogs on the first or second day, then something else will go wrong certainly. For example, none of them will be strong enough to do any heavy lifting on that job, that's for sure, and they'll also be statistically worse at driving and directions, which are pretty useful skills to have on a heist mission. And that's not even mentioning the obvious issue. One of these girls could start their period and jeopardize the whole job. Hell, the crew probably had to prep for the heist a few weeks or months before. The girls could have all had their cycles sync by then, and then they could all have their periods on the heist day, and the whole plan goes to shit. Just saying, it's something to think about. In the end, it really sounds like Hollywood might have saw this joke from John Mulaney and took it to heart a bit. That could be be part of the reason why they've made this Ocean's 8 movie, in spite of him, and to try and prove John wrong. But you know what? I think they may just end up proving him right instead. All-girl reboots are always a bad idea. They could work one day, sure, but currently they're getting made for all the wrong SJW reasons, and I think it's time it stopped. What do you guys think? Will Ocean's 8 be terrible? Will reviewers face backlash if they give bad reviews of it? And for fun, why don't you guys list all the worst ideas for all-female reboot movies below? I'll start with suggesting an all-female reboot of The Godfather, obviously called The Godmother. Comment your thoughts and all-girl reboot suggestions below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.